There are some truths about the heart that do not arrive through speech. They arrive through silence, through presence, and through a mysterious force that seems to pull two lives into orbit, without a word ever spoken. Love, real, unspoken love, listens more to the silence than the noise. If they understand your mood before you say a word, if they pick up on what you withhold, not what you express, then their soul has been tuned to yours. People do not listen this closely unless their heart is involved. Do you recall telling them your favorite childhood book, the way you like your tea, or the scent that reminds you of home? They remember, not out of duty but out of affection. The heart remembers what it cherishes. The mind keeps dates and facts. But the heart, it keeps moments. Some people love without poetry. They may not say, "I miss you," but they will check to see if you got home safe. They may never confess their admiration, but they will stand beside you when others walk away. Emotionally, their heart reveals what their mouth is too fragile to voice. The truest test of love is whether someone finds joy in your elevation. If you succeed and they smile, not from politeness but from deep, unselfish gladness, they have made space for you in their heart. The ego resents others' victories. The heart, when it loves, celebrates them. When you're away, something about them dulls. Perhaps they don't say it, but their presence shifts. The tone changes. The days grow longer. Absence becomes a quiet ache. This ache, subtle and sacred, is not annoyance. It is proof. You are missed because you are valued. A sign of deep emotional connection is unseen protection. If they defend you in your absence, not for gain, not for appearance, but out of principle, then they carry you with them. Only someone who holds you dear will speak when you are not there to hear it. Time is the one currency love cannot counterfeit. If they find time for you, when they have none, if they prioritize your presence in a life already filled, then you are not a passing thought. You are a rooted part of their emotional architecture. Perhaps the most powerful sign is transformation. Do they become softer, more careful, more intentional because of you? Love that is real, even silent, reshapes us. We begin to walk differently, as if carrying something precious inside, something we wish to protect. There is a kind of attention that speaks far louder than conversation. It does not arrive dressed in compliments or proclamations, but in the quiet consistency of one's gaze, one's awareness. It is silent but not absent. In fact, it is the very opposite. It is present to the point of invisibility. A kind of presence so deeply attuned to you that it escapes your notice until something finally makes you look back and wonder, how long have they been listening like this? In a world where noise is often mistaken for connection, the one who listens quietly is rare. Most people hear to respond. They wait for their turn to speak. But some, very few, hear because they cannot help but care. Their attention is not strategic. It is not a social performance. It is emotional fidelity, and fidelity in its truest sense is never loud. It is devotion that needs no recognition. Silent attention is often the first emotional sign that you hold a special place in someone's heart, for it is the mark of someone who places more value in you than in being noticed by you. You will often discover this kind of person, not through grand gestures, but through small recognitions. They know when your energy is off. They sense your discomfort in a room. They respond to the shift in your eyes before you have even figured out how you're feeling. This is not magic. It is memory trained by affection. It is the result of having watched you, not to analyze you, but to understand you. People do not observe this carefully unless something in their soul has decided that your peace matters to them. Silent attention is a form of love that refuses to intrude. It waits, it watches, it discerns. It seeks not to invade your inner world, but to hold space for it, gently, respectfully, faithfully. It is the opposite of self-serving concern. It does not demand answers. It does not ask for your gratitude. Its reward is simply to see you more clearly than others do. And in seeing you, it quietly offers something most people overlook: emotional safety. The heart that pays silent attention offers the kind of refuge that does not depend on performance. You do not need to be cheerful to deserve its care. You do not need to be eloquent, engaging, or strong. In fact, you may never even be aware of how closely they are watching over you until you begin to fall apart. And even then, their comfort may not come in words. It may come in a presence that doesn't leave, a glance that holds steady, a tone that softens, a quiet gesture that says, "I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." Some of the most profound affections in this life will never announce themselves. They will never say, "I love you," "I admire you," or even, "I'm here for you." But they will show up when you do not call. They will remember what you forgot you shared. They will offer you their full presence in moments others deem too small to matter. Their attention is not dependent on convenience. It is not subject to applause. It flows from something deeper, a silent, often unexplainable connection to your existence. We tend to underestimate what it means to be truly seen. Not observed, not evaluated, but seen, as in known, as in studied by a soul who has no agenda but love. The person who listens silently is not silent because they have nothing to say. They are silent because they are saying something deeper. You matter to me, more than the noise of my own opinions. And in a world obsessed with being heard, there is no higher form of love than choosing instead to hear. The one who listens without needing attention is not weak, but wise. They have discovered that the heart speaks more clearly when the mouth is closed. They understand that true emotional presence does not require validation. It simply requires love, quiet, constant, and undemanding. And where that kind of listening exists, so does something sacred, the unspoken truth that you hold a special place in someone's heart. There is a subtle kind of love that does not arrive with fireworks or the poetry of grand confessions. It comes instead in the tiniest acts, so ordinary, so woven into daily life, that they may escape your notice until hindsight reveals their meaning. These are the acts of invisible care, the kind that cost the giver effort but ask for no recognition. They reflect a form of attachment that is not performative, not decorative, but deeply real. When someone remembers your preferences without being reminded, how you take your tea, the sound that calms you, the small routines that make your day feel normal, that memory is not trivial. It is an emotional investment. Their attention has stored what you didn't know was valuable to them, simply because you are valuable to them. No one clings to someone's ordinary habits unless those habits belong to someone they hold dear. Invisible care can be found in tasks so small that they border on forgettable. Setting something aside because you might need it later. Keeping you in mind while shopping for themselves. Sending a message at the exact time they sense you need one. Taking on responsibilities without declaring them. Noticing what is missing in your world and quietly trying to fill that absence. These are not accidental behaviors. They are emotional signatures written not in ink, but in action. What makes these acts beautiful is not their scale, but their source. Anyone can be generous when seen. Anyone can perform care in public. But when someone does things for you with no expectation of credit, no social benefit, no emotional transaction, their care is not driven by ego. It is driven by affection, by a quiet reverence for your presence in their life. We often underestimate how loudly these small things speak. A meal kept warm, a message returned even when they are tired. A seat saved in a room full of noise. None of these gestures ask for thanks. But they speak of a person whose thoughts are calibrated to include you. Their world has made room for you, not because they must, but because they cannot imagine it without you. Sometimes these acts are so subtle that they border on invisible, especially to the one receiving them. You may walk past the cup of water someone placed by your bed without knowing it was intentional. You may forget how often they check the weather before you travel, or how they remember the name of the person who once hurt you, simply so they never speak of them again. You may not notice how often they ask questions about your day just to hear your voice settle. This is not forgetfulness on your part. It is the nature of love when it hides itself, not to manipulate, but to protect the dignity of both the giver and the receiver. Invisible care, in its purest form, expects nothing. It is not a strategy. It is a byproduct of affection too deep to be idle. The person who shows up in small ways again and again is not trying to impress you. They are trying, often unconsciously, to express what their heart cannot say aloud, that your comfort matters to them more than their own convenience. This kind of love does not beg to be named. It does not parade its effort. And yet, when gone, its absence is deafening. The warmth that once waited for you in forgotten places, the steady presence behind the scenes, the careful anticipation of your needs, all these go unnoticed until they are no longer offered. Then, and only then, do we realize how deeply we were loved by the one who made no effort to declare it. The truest care, like the roots of a great tree, is unseen but essential. It holds everything in place. It supports from below, and like roots, invisible care runs deep. It nourishes without demand. It stabilizes without applause. It keeps you upright without asking to be noticed, because being close to you is itself the reward. And so, if you have someone in your life whose kindness is quiet, whose gestures are easy to miss, and whose love is never spoken but always shown, know this: you are not being overlooked. You are being quietly treasured. The human mind forgets what it does not value. It filters the ordinary, discards the unremarkable, and stores what it deems worthy of attention. That is why we remember birthdays of loved ones, and why the sound of certain voices lingers in memory long after they've gone silent. So when someone remembers what others routinely forget, a passing comment, a specific emotion you tried to hide, a fear you briefly mentioned once, it is no accident. It is a sign of deeper emotional engagement. The heart has its own hierarchy of memory, and those who remember you in detail are those who have placed you near its center. Most people retain what is socially useful: names, schedules, obligations. They memorize the expected and ignore the subtle. But someone who holds a special place for you will remember what slipped from your lips months ago and never asked to be remembered. The name of your childhood pet. The street you once walked alone. The way your hands trembled when you talked about something you lost. These are not facts to them. They are fragments of you. Each detail is a thread they carefully store, as though keeping you together in the loom of their own attention. There is a kind of remembering that reveals more love than the words, "I love you," when someone recalls what you assumed had passed unnoticed. Your favorite book. The dish you couldn't eat. The day that quietly haunts you every year. It means they were listening not with their ears but with their heart. And hearts are the best record keepers, for they hold not just information but emotional context. They remember how you felt, not just what you said. Memory, in this sense, becomes a sacred act. To remember someone deeply is to preserve their presence, even in absence. It is to carry pieces of their inner life with you and guard them gently. As if entrusted with something fragile, this type of remembrance does not occur in crowded minds or self-centered hearts. It lives where affection has created room, where love has cleared a space for another to dwell unnoticed, but not unseen. You might be surprised one day when someone brings up something from long ago, something you had spoken without weight. You once said this. They tell you, and I've thought about it often. You may not even remember saying it, but they do, because they weren't just hearing you. They were holding you, holding your moments, your words, your reflections, as though collecting tokens of your soul. To them, what you called small was never small at all. The power of remembering lies not in accuracy, but in presence. It is not about having a perfect memory, but about having a purposeful one. The person who remembers your anxieties does not do so to remind you of them, but to soften the path ahead. The one who recalls your dreams is not keeping a record, but carrying a vision with you. They are walking alongside your hopes, even when they are silent about it. What others forget is not necessarily insignificant. It is simply not essential to them. So when someone remembers what made you cry during a film, what scent unsettles you, or what word triggers your doubt, it is because your interior world matters to them. This kind of attentiveness is not forced. It flows from a desire to be connected, not just to your image, but to your inner reality. They are not looking at you as one looks at a painting on a wall. They are listening to you like one listens to music, hearing the notes others miss. Even when time distances you from such people, their memory of you does not fade. They may not reach out daily. They may not express themselves overtly. But should you ever return to them, you will find the shelf of their hearts still holding your stories, undusted, undisturbed, preserved with quiet reverence. Because remembering is, in many ways, a form of loving. And if you ever feel unseen, unnoticed, or forgotten by the crowd, think of the one who remembers. The one who noticed the tone in your voice more than the words you spoke. The one who stored your smile in their thoughts and your pain in their prayers. The one who reminds you, not by declaration but by remembrance, that you are deeply known. There is a kind of presence that speaks not through eloquence or excess, but through quiet. The kind of silence that is not empty, but full. When someone holds you in deep regard, their silence is never a void. It is an offering, a stillness that allows you to breathe, weep, or think without interruption. This silence is not absence, it is presence distilled to its purest form. In a world that constantly demands words, the one who loves you in silence gives you the space to simply be. Words, for all their power, can become clumsy in sacred moments. There are sorrows that have no vocabulary, joys that outrun the tongue, and uncertainties that cannot be explained. In these moments, someone who truly values you will not rush to fill the silence. They will not speak simply to have spoken. Instead, they remain attentive, present, grounded, as if to say, I am here, even if I cannot fix it. That quiet companionship is often more healing than any sermon or speech. Silence becomes sacred when it is shared between those who understand one another. It is the language of trust, of emotional intimacy that does not require translation. When someone sits with you in your grief and does not attempt to rescue you with shallow assurances, that silence is love refusing to turn away. They stay, not because they have the answers, but because they understand the weight of the question. Their silence acknowledges what cannot be explained, that life sometimes hurts in places no word can reach. In many ways, the measure of how much space you occupy in someone's heart is revealed not by how much they say to you, but how they behave when they say nothing at all. Some silences are indifferent, others are impatient, but the silence of someone who cares is gentle. It does not rush. It does not crowd. It waits. It watches over you like a night sky, not asking for your light, but offering shelter for your darkness. Even in conflict, their silence may speak volumes. When someone refrains from harsh words, when they choose not to strike back in anger, when they leave the door open for reconciliation, even if they are wounded, that restraint is love guarding itself. They are choosing peace over pride, preservation over provocation. The silence in such moments is not coldness. It is control, exercise for your sake as much as their own. There is also the silence of prayer, that quiet unseen moment when someone speaks to God on your behalf without ever telling you they did. They do not publicize their concern. They do not dramatize their devotion, but in the quiet of their own room, they whisper your name into eternity's ears. That kind of silence changes things. It is the intercession of love, the spiritual language of those who believe that words said in secret are more powerful than applause in public. Sometimes, when people do not know how to love you with words, they love you with silence. By listening without interruption, by allowing your pauses to linger without embarrassment, by letting your tears fall without immediately reaching for a tissue or a reason. They do not interpret your silence as rejection or distance. They know it is a season, not a sentence. They wait beside you, not trying to pull you out of the stillness, but simply reminding you that you are not alone in it. And when they are the ones who go quiet, it may not be because they have withdrawn, but because they are overwhelmed by how much they feel. Some hearts are too full to speak. Their quietness is not absence of thought, but abundance of it, Too many emotions, too many questions, too much care to put into neat sentences. In their silence, they are composing a love that is still learning how to be heard. So when someone says little but remains, when they offer you their company without commentary, when they give you their presence without performance, do not mistake it for detachment. That silence is a sanctuary. That stillness is a signal. You dwell in a sacred space within them, not because they proclaim it, but because they cannot leave it. There are people who do not wait for you to explain your sorrow. They sense it before it takes form in words. They notice the slight dimming of your expression, the hesitation in your voice, the way you answer, "I'm fine," too quickly. Their awareness of your pain is not analytical, it is instinctive. They feel the tremors of your suffering as if your heart were an extension of their own. This is not something taught. It is a sensitivity born of deep emotional attachment, of closeness that transcends the need for articulation. Empathy, in its highest form, does not require evidence. It listens before you speak, and it hears even what you are trying to hide. The person who holds you dearly in their heart does not need a long explanation to know that you are carrying something heavy. They rid the silences between your words, the shift in your usual rhythms, the way your laughter doesn't quite reach your eyes. Their ability to feel what you cannot say is not an invasion but a comfort. It means you are known in a way that is deeper than logic and more tender than analysis. Some people ask, "What's wrong?" because they want information. But the one who truly feels your pain asks it because they want to carry a portion of it with you. Their question is not a demand but an offering, an invitation to share your burden, even if only silently. And when you cannot bring yourself to speak, they do not press you. They simply stay close, creating a safe space with their presence, reassuring you with their stillness that you are not abandoned in your hurt. When someone feels your pain, they will often respond in small, quiet ways that speak more loudly than sympathy ever could. They may bring you your favorite drink without asking. They may send a message at just the right moment without knowing why. They may shift their schedule or their tone, adjusting themselves to your invisible need. These acts are not accidental. They are the gestures of someone who has tuned their heart to yours, someone who recognizes that love often moves best in the subtleties. You may notice that they grow quieter when you are hurting, not out of awkwardness but out of reverence. Your pain becomes, for them, a sacred space, not to be filled with quick answers or noisy comfort, but to be honored with patience. They do not trivialize your experience or try to rush you through it. They simply endure it with you as though your grief were their own, and in many ways it is. They suffer when you suffer, not because they lack boundaries, but because the boundary between you and them has been lovingly blurred by care. Even if you try to hide your pain, even if you mask it with politeness or business, they still notice, not because they are intrusive, but because they are attentive. Pain leaves echoes, and they have learned to hear those echoes in your routine, in your reactions, in your moments of withdrawal. They do not accuse or confront. They gently let you know through word or presence that they are near, that you are seen, that your attempt to appear strong has not fooled them, and it doesn't need to. When someone feels your pain, they do not compare it to their own or offer tired platitudes. They don't remind you that others have it worse. They don't rush you to be better. They let you bleed at your own pace. They let your sorrow unfold naturally. They sit in the ash heap with you, not because they are helpless, but because they know the power of shared stillness. They understand that healing does not always begin with answers. Sometimes it begins with companionship. And even when you have not spoken in days, even when distance or silence separates you, they carry a quiet concern. They wonder how you are doing, even if they do not say it. They think of you when they pray, or when they pass the place where you once laughed, or when they see something that reminds them of your sorrow. Your pain has written itself into their awareness, not because you insisted on it, but because they welcomed it in. Such people are rare. those who do not merely observe your sadness, but absorb it into their own hearts. They are not overwhelmed by it. They are moved to stand with you in it. They may never say the words, "I feel your pain," because they don't need to. You already know. You feel it in the way they look at you, in the way they wait for you, in the way their spirit bends toward yours like a tree leaning into the wind of another's storm. Me to continue with the sixth and final keynote. There are moments when your mere presence alters the emotional weather of another person's day. Without realizing it, you become a force that shapes their internal landscape. Your sadness becomes a fog in their mind, your laughter, a sudden clearing of skies. When you are heavy-hearted, they feel subdued. When you are joyful, their heart is lighter, even if they don't understand why. This is not dependency. It is a mark of deep emotional connection, one so intertwined that your inner world ripples across theirs without needing permission or warning. To hold such sway over someone is not always something we're conscious of, and yet it reveals that you dwell within them in a place far deeper than casual affection reaches. They monitor the tone of your messages, the rise and fall of your expressions, the music in your voice or the silence in your eyes. Your smallest emotional cues, unnoticed by others, are gathered and held closely by them. They have become students of your spirit, not because they try, but because they care. When you feel burdened, they cannot carry on as usual. Their jokes become forced, their energy subdued, even if you haven't shared your struggle. They sense something is off, and that unsettledness in you leaves an echo in them. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it. A cloud has moved across their emotional sky, and they know instinctively that it came from you. They don't blame you for this. In fact, they wouldn't have it any other way. To be moved by your pain is, to them, an expression of love, not a liability. You might notice, though you never asked for it, that they become quieter when you are troubled, not out of disinterest, but in reverence. They don't want to add to your weight. They don't want to disturb the delicate balance of your day. They become gentle, tentative, as if speaking too loudly might startle the wounds you are trying to keep hidden. Their mood bends with yours, not out of obligation, but out of attunement. They are, in some strange way, symphonic with you. Likewise, when you are happy, they are enlivened. Your joy is a sunrise to them, unexpected and energizing. They may not always join your enthusiasm with matching volume, but internally they glow with warmth. Your light spills over into their day. Even a brief smile from you can lift a weight they didn't know they were carrying. Your happiness has the strange ability to validate their own, as though your peace means something is right in the world again. And when you are distant, their mood falters. Not in a dramatic way, but in subtle gestures. They become distracted, they overthink, they replay conversations. They wonder if they've done something wrong, even when logic says otherwise. You are not simply a person to them, you are a vital point of emotional reference. When that reference wavers or dims, they feel unanswered. They try to read your silence like a language. They try to feel their way back to you through intuition, not because they're needy, but because your well-being is tied to theirs. What makes this emotional influence so remarkable is that it often operates in secrecy. You don't realize you're affecting them. You don't set out to influence their mood. You simply live, and they, being who they are, absorb every shade and shadow that passes across your being. This is not something they can turn off, nor would they want to. To be affected by you is a sign that their heart has found in you something rare, something worthy of deep investment. Sometimes they hide how much they are moved by your moods. They carry the shift in private, not wanting to burden you further. They might say they're fine, even when they feel hollow, because they saw that you were struggling. They'll support you without asking for attention, because to them, your peace is reward enough. They don't feel diminished by your emotional weather. They feel honored to dwell close enough to it that they can sense the change. This is where love often lives, not in grand declarations, but in quiet attunements, in the way someone carries a sadness they didn't earn, simply because it belongs to someone they love, in the way they celebrate victories that aren't theirs, simply because they want your happiness to be theirs too. You become their barometer for emotional meaning, not by force, but by affection. So when someone's mood shifts with yours, know that this is not mere sensitivity. It is connection. You reside in their heart in such a way that your internal life gently, and sometimes dramatically, influences theirs. You didn't ask for that power. You may not even be aware you possess it. But it is there, silent, steady, sincere.